I am drinking the maroon Kool-Aid with Texas A&M. They've been one of the most disappointing teams in the country. You paid $70 million to get rid of Jimbo Fisher. You have a fake national championship trophy in your arch rival's backyard. If you didn't know, the fake national championship trophy that's been memed for years now. There's either a replica or the real one is in an Austin-led restaurant. I don't know how it got there. I don't care. It's just not a great look. And this is a marquee year for Texas A&M. Outside of the fact that you have Mike Elko, you have your biggest rival back on the schedule. We've been waiting 10 years for Texas and Texas A&M to play. You get them at home, and Texas is the best that they've been in a decade. So you better take your shot now. And it's going to hurt a lot more knowing that they were a top 5 team than a middle of the pack team in the Big 12. But let's talk about Texas A&M this year, because I think there's some hope that they could be a sleeper team in the SEC. They've gotten a little bit of hype in the media. You have guys like Connor Wigman that's potential QB1. Some rankings have him as the best quarterback in the class. I'm not going to say that because he's very much unproven, like most of the players in this class. And then you have other guys saying that they're going to rank higher than Texas. So let's get to the facts of Texas A&M, the changes that they made, and why there is some hope that they could be a sneaky good team. But first, let's get the baseline understood. This is a program that has all the resources in the world and the capability and the ceiling to be a national title winning program. There's no way around it. That is the baseline. They are basically Georgia before Kirby Smart got there, where you had the ceiling, you just kept scratching the surface of it. And Texas A&M has not been able to do that with guys like Kevin Sumlin, who, to be fair, Kevin Sumlin early into his years was basically the guy that got them the infrastructure and the resources. You could really give Johnny Manziel like 90% of that credit, but he was there for the buildup. And then Jimbo Fisher was the guy that was supposed to maximize it. Didn't end up happening. You saw it with his relationships with the guys in the recruiting. Like the first thing that came out with Mike Elko was this is someone that builds relationships with high school coaches in Texas. And these are like the minute details, the small things that matter when building a program that Jimbo Fisher overlooked. He was chasing stars. That was a rumor that was very real. You saw it with the 2022 class, and now a good chunk of that class is gone. What is this team going to look like moving forward, knowing they have that ceiling, and are they building up to being a national title winning program? Because if that's the ceiling, that should be the goal. That should be the end game. There's other programs around the country that can't have that realistic goal because, to be fair, they don't have Texas potentially. They don't have the resources. They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have the NIL presence. But A&M has all of that. So who's going to be the leader? Could it be Mike Elko? Let's talk about it. One of the biggest bright spots with Texas A&M is the fact they have continuity at the quarterback position. Yes, Connor Wigman only played 3.5 games, but in those games with a really bad offensive line and the Jimbo Fisher outdated, 1,000 papers offense with a guy like, Bobby Petrino, I guess, helping, he had some really good flashes, just point blank period. And I think he has really good traits that he can build upon. He has a very quick release, so he was able to get the ball out fast whenever there was pressure coming. He makes smart decisions. He has really good baseline talent. He's mobile, not super, super athletic, but he's mobile, and he has a good arm. So you have that foundation to build on when he was in a pretty bad offensive situation and a bad scheme. And to be fair, what injured him was part of the issue from the Miami game, which was, I believe, his toughest opponent up till that point, which was a quarter blitz would come in free damn near every other play. And that's what injured him on the ankle. And I think that if they're able to have just a marginally better offensive line, and that is a concern I have with the offense overall, is he could really blossom into an NFL level quarterback, to be honest, because he has that upside. And trust me, we're going to find out very quickly. They play Notre Dame at home. College game day is going to be there. Notre Dame has a really, really good secondary, just littered with like potential top 10 picks. And if he's able to pair up with a guy like Colin Klein at the offense coordinator position, someone that I'm very high on, he's a young mind. This team has been desperate for just some juice. Get the ball into the playmakers' hands. That has been an issue for this team. I don't know how it's been an issue. Talk to Jimbo Fisher about it. But this team has so much juice on the weapons and at the quarterback position. They're going to be tested week 1. Notre Dame, it's a coin flip right now. Betting odds are saying it's a -1 Notre Dame one day, -1 to Texas A&M. It's basically a pick 'em at that point because of it being in Kyle Field. They're going to be testing. We're going to really find out. Now, it's not going to definitively make the opinion of what this team can be just because you don't want to do that. Week 1, you're going to get burned every single time. I know I've talked about Colin Klein. I think the running back room is going to be the strength, and then the offensive line is the biggest question mark. with the wide receiver depth being a little bit of a concern just because you lost some guys. I think Noah Thomas, if he puts on some weight, we're talking about a 6'6" wide receiver, former basketball player. We know what happens when you have that basketball player turned into a football player. Sometimes you get some magic. He's 6'6". He's just 200 pounds. If he gets the 210, 215, we're talking about an NFL wide receiver. Moose Muhammad, I've been hyping up for years. He's had some beef with Jimbo Fisher. We're talking about a dude that got benched because he wanted to wear sleeves. Don't get me started. He's super talented. But Reuben Owens and Le'Veon Moss, the tandem in the backfield, that's what I think this team is going to rely on. But when you're relying on a running game, you need a good offensive line. That's the X factor to most college offenses, but specifically with Texas A&M, protect the damn quarterback because they were down to their fourth string quarterback by last year's bowl game against Oklahoma State. A true freshman in Marcel Reed, who I'm high on, but I'm not going to start that right now. He's a developmental quarterback with a lot of upside. But you just can't do that. You can't have, I understand it's very unlucky, but you had Haynes King, you had Calzada get injured, you had Max Johnson get injured. Like, it was a trend, and they made a hire with the strength and conditioning coach. Tommy Moffitt, the strength and conditioning coach, formerly at LSU, goes to Texas A&M. He's holding a standard. I understand you can only control so much with injuries, but strength and conditioning can go into it. And this, like I said, these are the details that you need to have foundationally really strong in order to build a national title contending program. He's legendary, apparently. Like, I've heard story and personal accounts of what this dude can do for a program, and you saw it, and I heard rumors of guys going to the transfer portal because he's just that intense, and that's kind of what you want with the strength and conditioning coach. Not to wear them out before game day, but to hold a standard of what their physical peak should look like. So we've talked about Colin Klein. We've talked about the strength and conditioning coach. I could dive into the offensive and defensive line coaches, but we'd be here all day. Let's talk about the defense. Mike Elko, this is not what I'm worried about. Like, to be honest, there's defensive pieces littered on that defensive line. You get Nick Scourton from Purdue, super talented NFL caliber player on an edge like room that you're not going to really look for depth issues or high-end talent because it's all there. The linebacking room is a concern outside of Torian York. Torian York was a true freshman last year, broke out. He was on the same level of guys like Anthony Hill Jr. from Texas. He had Edgerrin Cooper next to him. I'm curious on how his development will look like, and maybe if there's someone else that can step up to be next to him. Linebacker is one area of concern. Now, from last year, if you were to ask me what my concern would be, the following year would be the secondary, because everyone was just head-topping Texas A&M consistently. 50-50 balls felt like 90-10 balls going to the offensive side of the ball. I don't really think that's going to be an issue this year. I think it's, if anything, potentially a strength. They've made a lot of effort to changing that. The secondary coach that they've hired, I really like. And I think they've brought in a lot of transfers to allocate for that. And you had guys coming back. One of the concerns I had with this overall team was the fact that you had guys that had breakout years one year and then a steep drop off the next year. You had that with the offensive line. You had that with the cornerback room. You had it sometimes with the wide receiver room. And I think the coaching can make such a massive jump for this team. And if you just look at the schedule, you'll see it on the screen. Texas A&M's schedule is very manageable. They're at 8.5 wins. It's a perfect line, to be fair, because I think 8-4, 9-3, 10-2 are the three scenarios that could happen. 7-5 is absolute worst case. I would say the floor is 8-4, the ceiling is 10-2 for this season specifically, because you have four marquee games. You have Notre Dame, you have LSU, Missouri, and then you have Texas at home. Texas is damn near worth 2 wins just because you haven't played them in 10 years. And then let's not ignore, because it's the SEC, you have at Florida and at Auburn, and then all the other games that you have at home. These are things you just overlook, especially like Arkansas, who has played you close for a lot of years. But like, if you win 2 of those 4 games or 1 of those 4 games, you leave 3 losses on there. You're looking at 9-3 if you're able to sweep the board with everyone else. Say you lose 1 of those games, you're back at 8-4. That's what I mean. Like, 8-5 is perfect because it's teetering between, 8 wins and 9 wins. But say you win 2 of those really tough games and then you sweep the board, you all of a sudden are 10-2. So Texas A&M, it could be a range of emotions. If they're a 9-3 and they beat like Texas to finish the year, you're having those conversations because of how difficult SEC schedules are. They could be a playoff team. Or you're looking at a solid bowl game and you lose Connor to the NFL draft, and then you're having a quarterback change and maybe this team isn't ready for another 2 years, or you're loading up for maybe 2026 is the year for a national title. Who knows? There's so many things that could happen this year, but there's reason to be optimistic with Texas A&M, and I'm excited for it. If you're new here, thank you so much for giving me a shot. Watching this video gave me a shot to talk football with you, and all I can ask is just give me another one. You know, whether that's a like, a comment, a subscribe. I love talking football with you guys. I want to build a community. I want this to be something. And if you're returning, welcome back, man. Thank you for giving me another shot to talk football with you. Have a fantastic day. I'll see y'all next time.